Well, good evening, everybody. I'm back for another virtual concert tonight. Nice to have you with us. This is the first one of the new year. And so for the last 3 years in a row, I have done a concert called New Year, New Songs. And this one is for 2025. It's so much easier to say 2025 than 2025. I think we should all switch over to that at this point. Anyhow, the idea is not to play new songs, but new old songs that I have never performed before. And, this time of year, January and February, are probably the slowest times of the year for my work. And so it's a good time for me to practice new material. Not everything you hear tonight, of course, will be a brand new piece that I have never played, but there will be a lot of them that I have not played very often, as well as some new tunes I've never ever played. And we're going to start off with one that I only learned about a year ago. I sort of learned this by ear, which is something very rare. I don't usually do that, but it was simple enough. And that's because it's an example of the earliest folk-style ragtime. And I'm going to play two pieces back-to-back by Brun Campbell, who was one of Scott Joplin's piano students. These are his best two pieces, I think. And so I finally learned this one, a great folk rag by Campbell called Essay in Ragtime. Thank you very much. Essay in Ragtime. And since I played that, I figured I might as well go ahead and do the other piece by Campbell, which I've been playing actually for many years, but not that often lately. And I think this was probably the best record he ever made. It was not recorded until the 1940s, long after the ragtime era had passed. But the tune is called Chestnut Street in the 90s. And it is meant to imitate the sounds of Chestnut Street in St. Louis back in the 1890s. Campbell played what was later on called folk ragtime. It's the very earliest style. I really think this is a good example of what ragtime sounded like in the 1890s. It wasn't necessarily as sophisticated as you might imagine. Campbell was a itinerant saloon piano player. So here is Chestnut Street in the 90s by Brun Campbell. Thank you so much. Chestnut Street in the 90s. The first 3 sections or so of that piece are based on a rag that was actually published in the 1890s called Rags to Burn by Frank X. McFadden. That's the story on that piece. The rest of it likely made up by Brun Campbell, or if you want to be really fancy about it, Brun Campbell. Well, I've already got 108 listeners on YouTube. That's fantastic. I'm reading the comments here in the chat. I saw this comment. He says, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I heard Johnny Maddox once mention hardened keys, which I understood, and a detuned piano, which I didn't. Well, a detuned piano is something that was kind of invented in the 1950s in order to create a honky-tonk sound. So the piano tuner would just, turn the tuning pins so the piano didn't sound very good. I don't like that, but I don't mind playing on lacquered pianos because it gives them kind of a rinky-tink sound, and I like that in a saloon because it's just fun and it's what people expect. I do not like detuned pianos myself. That's my feeling on it. Hey, Bob Mill, nice to have you with us tonight. Patrick says, shut up and play. Okay. He's just kidding. We're going to do one of the very earliest ragtime pieces now. I learned this when I was about 14 or 15 years old. For some reason, I remember playing this when I was in Hungary, playing at the Boheme Ragtime Festival for the first time. And I remember John Arpin was in the audience, and I talked to him about this piece afterwards. But I've probably played it about 3 times since. So here is Eubie Blake's version of The Dream, one of the earliest rags that was supposedly heard at the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. And again, this is the Eubie Blake version, which he credited to Jesse Pickett, one of the early itinerant piano players. He called it the Dream Rag sometimes. So here's the Dream Rag. Thank you very much. The Dream, or The Dream Rag. If you're a fellow musician, you may have noticed that piece is in the key of B natural, or C flat, which is very difficult to play as a musician. Well, I feel pretty warmed up now, and usually at about this point I do mention that I accept virtual tips for these concerts. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, and even just a little bit on Sunday nights helps very much with my career, especially at this slow time of year. I remember my friend, pianist from California, Frederick Hodges, telling me a number of years ago that January and February were always the slowest times of year for him, and the same seems to be true for me. But I get to do virtual concerts, which is fantastic, and tonight's performance is called New Year, New Songs. I'm going to be doing a bunch of songs that I've never played before. And we'll get to a few of those in a minute, and I'm always happy to take requests as well. Go ahead and send them on in. If I can answer one, I'd be happy to do so. I'd rather not play Maple Leaf Rag and the Entertainer every Sunday night, but if you come up with a fun request, put it in the chat, just let me know, and let me see. Oh, I should mention, for those of you that might not already know, I'm producing the Durango Ragtime and Early Jazz Festival again myself this spring. I have gotten the official IRS approval for the nonprofit corporation that's going to run this event. I'm the president of it, and it's going to be really exciting. April 3rd through the 6th at both the historic Strader Hotel and the Durango Arts Center. All of the information is now in one place. You can get it at durangoragtime.com. Go take a look at the new website I built myself if you have not done so, and that will show you how to do everything else, how to get tickets and hotel rooms for the festival. So let me know if you want any more information about the Durango Ragtime and Jazz Festival. And in the meantime, I'm going to continue playing some of the very early style music from the earliest period of ragtime. And the very early rags were based on the march form. And I bet you Dave Goodlaxon will like this. I just saw a comment here from Dave now. It says, trying to make the Durango trip work. I sure hope you can. Let me know, Dave. I'm working very hard on this festival. I think you'd love it. So anyway, here's a traditional march. This is not ragtime at all, but it's a very popular piece from that era, from 1900. The piece was written, I believe, at least in part, by Harry J. Lincoln, and it's called The Midnight Fire Alarm. much. Midnight Fire Alarm, written way back in 1900, a traditional march in the style of John Philip Sousa, who was probably more well-known. Yeah, E.T. Paul was the publisher, and yeah, that's why it has such great cover artwork, but the piece was written by Harry J. Lincoln. It was one of the great march composers of the early 1900s. He may have written some rags too, I'm not sure. I see a request for Under the Double Eagle. Why don't I go ahead and play that? That's also one of the oldest marches that I know of. It was written in 1870. It's an Austrian march. Under the Double Eagle, a popular piece that was probably played a lot in the ragtime years too. I believe in German, Unter dem Doppelten Adler, something like that. This is a request from Roy St. George on YouTube. Here you go. Under the Double Eagle. Thank you very much. Under the Double Eagle. So there are two old-time marches. The difference between the rags and the marches is that the marches don't have the syncopation in the melody. They don't have that ragged rhythm. And so that's what makes a rag different from a march. Let's go back to the traditional ragtime now. As I'm sure a number of you know, I'm a big fan of the music of Joe Jordan. And he was one of the traditional ragtime composers who lived in St. Louis at first in the early 1900s, but he was one of the first to move from St. Louis to Chicago, which became a huge musical center during the jazz age of the 1920s. In fact, well, if you're not familiar with Joe Jordan, his two most famous tunes were that Teasin' Rag, which came out in 1909, and then in 1910 he wrote the song that made Fanny Brice famous, Baby Snooks on the radio years later. Fanny Brice starred in the 1910 Ziegfeld Follies, and Joe Jordan wrote Lovey Joe for her, which is the song that made her famous. And so that's a little bit about who he was. And he moved to Chicago, I think possibly as early as 1904, because that's when he wrote the Pekin Rag, which was named for the Pekin Theater in Chicago. Joe Jordan was the composer of all the music for the shows at the Pekin Theater, which was the first big black-owned and operated theater in the country. Pekin, P-E-K-I-N. And you may have heard on a recent broadcast I played a piano roll of the Pekin Rag. But I thought I'd play for you one of Joe's ragtime songs that, you might say it was a mild hit. And I think it was sometime last year, I obtained the original edition of this song from my friend Sandy Marone, the sheet music collector in New Jersey. This is the only original copy of this I have seen outside of the Library of Congress. The tune was a mild hit, but the copy you always find has a different cover. And actually, frankly, it's much better cover artwork. This one just has black writing and an orange background, but it's more fascinating in a way. The tune is called Sweetie Dear. I suppose I should tell you that right off the bat. That's what I'm going to play next, Sweetie Dear. And in fact, the chorus of the tune is taken from the Pekin Rag. What's interesting about this copy is that it mentions a black Broadway show called Abyssinia, starring Ada Overton Walker. So this song must have been used in that show, and it's also self-published by Joe Jordan and the lyricist Will Marion Cook at the Pekin Theater in Chicago. Will Marion Cook was probably even better known in his own time than Jordan was. Will Marion Cook also wrote the lyrics for Levee Joe, and he was one of the most important and highly educated African-American musicians of the early 1900s. He was a conductor and orchestra leader. That's why he's very important. But without further ado, I'm sure that's more than you ever wanted to know about this tune. Here's Sweetie Dear. Thank you very much. Sweetie Dear, a mild hit of the ragtime era that's not as well known by Joe Jordan. And I certainly haven't played that in a long time. It's from the show Abyssinia, where it was featured by Ada Overton Walker, George Walker's wife. And I think Joe also said that it was sung by Abby Mitchell, Will Marion Cook's wife. Well, since I'm talking about Joe Jordan, here's one of his rags that I have never played, a new song for the new year. And this is probably the rarest of all of his instrumental rags. And that's why I thought I'd play it tonight. It's called JJJ Rag, and I really have no idea where the title comes from. I thought it might be the composer's initials, but his middle name did not start with the letter J. If you look on the original sheet music cover, which I posted on Facebook a couple of days ago, you'll see there are Blue Jays on the music cover. So maybe that's what it means. It's the JJJ Rag by Joe Jordan, published, again, self-published at the Pekin Theater in Chicago, 1905. New tune for the new year. Thank you very much. It's JJJ Rag. I'd give anything in the world to find an original copy of that. Well, now another tune that I don't play very often. It's probably been 2 or 3 years at least. And this is a piece that was written by another important African-American composer of the Ragtime era. His name was Will Tyers, and his most famous tune is called Panama. And it was originally a piano instrumental, and it was later adopted by a lot of the early Dixieland-style jazz bands. Lots of them have played Panama over the years. But this is another tune that he wrote, and I first heard this on the Golden Reunion in Ragtime with Eubie Blake and Joe Jordan and Charlie Thompson. So I play it the way they did in F sharp, C sharp, and F sharp, which is more challenging. The piece is called Maori, subtitled A Samoan Dance. That must be the people of Samoa. And again, written by Will Tyers. Here's Maori. Has a little bit of the tango or the habanera bass in the left hand. That's part of the rhythm. so much, everybody. Well, let me check the comments here. See if there's any requests. Go ahead and send in some requests, everybody. My friend from France is here on Twitch. Nice to have you with us tonight. Could you play the most classic saloon ragtime? I see that comment on Twitch. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing tonight, really. I've done quite a bit of music that might qualify for that. I've never played Panama, so I'm afraid I can't do that one, Dylan. Don't forget to hit the like button, by the way. If you're enjoying the music, subscribe to me on YouTube and hit the like button. It helps me out. Let's do a more familiar ragtime tune. A lot of the ones I'm playing tonight I chose because I have some rare sheet music to share with you. This one, I think I have the only known original copy of this. I have never seen the same edition anywhere else. I'm guessing this is the original edition. There's really no way to be sure for certain, but this is a song written in 1918 by a famous African-American actor who later made some movies. I'm sure he was in Vaudeville. His name was Eddie Green. His daughter is a Facebook friend of mine. She wrote a book about her father. And this is a famous song. Maybe some of you will recognize it, what you might call a standard tune. A good man is hard to find. And this is what the original edition looks like. This black and white drawing published by Pace and Handy. It's the music company that was owned by W.C. Handy. Along with Clarence Williams, he was probably the most important publisher for African-American musicians. W.C. Handy, anyway. And this song fits in for tonight because I haven't played it very often over the years, and I'm even going to play the original verse to the song, which most people don't know. So here's A Good Man is Hard to Find. Thank you very much. A good man is hard to find. You always get the other kind. Just when you think that he's your pal, you look for him and find him hanging around some other gal. And then you rave, you even crave to see him laying down in his grave. So if your man is nice, take my advice. Hug him in the morning, kiss him at night. Give him lots of loving, treat him right. For a good man nowadays is hard to find. So says Eddie Green. Here's another piece that I have not played very often over the years. I only remember doing this one time so far on my virtual concerts. So this is a little bit of a new song, but it dates from 1914. And I do not have the original sheet music for this. I would love to find this. This is one of those things that I'm sure will turn up, and I'll find it eventually. It can't be that rare, because this piece was featured by Vernon and Irene Castle, the famed dancers of the ragtime era, ballroom-style dancers. Of course, there's the Astaire and Rogers movie about their life called The Story of Vernon and Irene Castle. Here's a Xerox copy of the sheet music, a giant big old copy. I probably made this Xerox at Johnny's house in Tennessee. And the piece is called Drawing Room Echoes. What's really neat about this piece is that it's in 5/4 time. Another challenge for my fellow musicians. There was a short-lived craze in the ragtime years called the half and half, and that was the 5/4 time dance. The reason it was called the half and half is because half of it was in 3 and half of it was in 2. So 3 and 2 make 5. So here is this piece written in 1914 by F. Henry Clickman, called Drawing Room Echoes. And again, the dance is the half and half in 5/4 time. Thank you very much. Drawing Room Echoes. Just a great piece. I pretty much have that committed to memory. I think that'd be fun to play. I think I'm going to play that during the Ragtime Festival and challenge the drummer, Danny Coots, to play with me in 5/4 time. It'd be kind of funny. Hey, thanks for counting, Carl. 190 viewers on YouTube and Facebook combined. That's terrific. Maybe we'll make it to 200 tonight. No, Roy, I don't know where to find that music. He's asking about the good old days, the theme song from the Our Gang movies. I really don't, I don't know. Double checking all the websites. Oh, I'm afraid I'd have to see the sheet music to play Pastime Rag number 5. I've got 8 listeners on Twitch. That's more than usual. I did play all the Pastime Rags on a recent concert. I think the concert was called Classic Ragtime Rarities. Look that up on YouTube and you can still hear it. I'm going to take a little bit of a risk now and play a piece for you, which was featured on one of the Johnny Maddox LPs called The World's Greatest Piano Rolls. He did 7 of these albums. That's where I first heard the tune. I'm doing this for historical purposes only, and let me think about how else I want to word it. I hope no one thinks it's in bad taste. It's possible I could always go back and edit the video out in the YouTube video editor if I have to, if it gets flagged or something. But I think it's a good tune, which is primarily why I want to play this music for you. I'm going to even show you the original sheet music, since it's a historical oddity that is a rarity in my collection. And I might even read you the words. Now, keep in mind that this music, this is the number one thing I want you to remember. This is making fun of these people who are politically incorrect. Just remember, it's making fun of them. And that's the only thing I would ever do, is make fun of them. I'm going to show you the sheet music here now from 1921. Unfortunately, there was a revival of this group in the early 1920s during the beginning of the Jazz Age, and so there were some funny songs that were written like this. This one was written by Sam Coslow and Leo Friedman. I think it's the same Leo Friedman that wrote Let Me Call You Sweetheart. Sam Coslow later worked for Paramount Studios and wrote songs for Bing Crosby and so forth. This piece from 1921 is called There's a Bunch of Clucks in the Ku Klux Klan. And maybe I shouldn't show you the cover, but I'm going to play the tune because it's quite a good tune of the early jazz years. Now here's the words, just so you understand that it's supposed to be making fun of something horrible and stupid. In the daily papers, there's a certain society, gets notoriety now. I've read all about it, and between you and me, they all seem loony somehow. There's something wrong, no doubt, and here's how I figured it out. There's a bunch of clucks in the Ku Klux Klan, and they're all cuckoo, that's true. With their awful hoke, they're an awful joke when you watch the things they do. We ought to pile them in some asylum and never let them out, because we don't know and they don't know what the deuce it's all about. There's the Grand High Punk with his Grand High Bunk and his Grand High Palace too. But I've just found out how he got that palace, and I'll tell you. Each little cluck pays one little buck, but he's out of luck because he'll get stuck when he finds they're all cuckoo and the Ku Klux Klan. Thank you very much, folks. There's a bunch of clucks in the Ku Klux Klan. Ain't it the truth? Let me put this back in the music sleeve because it's quite a valuable rarity. Well, I'm hiding it on the piano. Well, now I'm going to play you another song that was featured on one of the Johnny Maddox piano roll LPs. And I do not have an original copy of this. It's another one that so far has eluded me, but I have a Xerox copy. I think this Xerox copy came from Alex Assan. He copied it for me. And it's one of those tunes that has a really weird title, another one. It's called Nothing Does, like it used to do. Music by Sammy Fain, words by Irving Cale and Manny Ross. Sammy Fain wrote for one of the Disney movies. It might have been Cinderella or Alice in Wonderland, one of those. But this is from his Tin Pan Alley days. All I've got, I might as well show you, all I've got is the black and white copy of the sheet music cover. Looks just like anything else from the Roaring 20s, but it's got this great title. I've already got this committed to memory, actually, because I want to keep playing it. A new tune for the new year, but it's from 1927. Nothing does, like it used to do. Thank you very much. Nothing does, like it used to do. When I first saw the title on the Piano Roll album, I used to think it was a typo. It turns out that's the real name of the song. Well, I think it's time to play my nightly player piano roll. So let's do that next. And I don't think I played this when I did the concert that was almost entirely piano rolls. I might have. I don't think so. I went back to check. I actually took the time to go check because this is a remarkable piano roll, and it's one that I just happened to discover by accident. This is a role that was played by Phil Oman, one of the most virtuoso pianists of the 20s and 30s. We're getting into the early jazz period now. This is actually a show tune from the Greenwich Village Follies of 1919. And let's see. It's a QRS hand-played player piano roll, number 907. I Want a Daddy Who Will Rock Me to Sleep, from the Greenwich Village Follies, words by Bartholomew and Anderson, who was John Murray Anderson, the famous choreographer. Music by A. Baldwin Sloan, played by Phil Oman, published by M. Whitmark and Sons, 1919. On this piano roll, you can really tell what an incredible pianist Phil Oman was. And he was still quite young when he made this piano roll. It might have been before he teamed up with Victor Arden. So here's this remarkable piano roll. I will try and add some expression with the dynamic lever on my Apollo piano. That's what this is. I seem to get asked every time what type of piano this is. Every time I play a roll, or sometimes even when I don't. It's a 1913 Apollo player piano. And here is this really awesome QRS autograph piano roll. I Want a Daddy Who Will Rock Me to Sleep, played by Phil Oman. I Want a Daddy Who Will Rock Me to Sleep. It's too bad you can't read the words on the piano roll. Thankfully, I have automatic rewind, even though I don't have automatic tracking. Let's get that closed up. Well, it is now past 7 o'clock here in Durango, Colorado, and I'd like to remind you that I do accept virtual tips for these concerts. If you're enjoying the music, a small amount helps because I have so many listeners tonight, you know, a small amount adds up. And there's both PayPal and Venmo information in the chat and the postings on all three websites. And I have a P.O. box on my website for checks as well if you don't trust PayPal. And at the same P.O. box, I'm accepting donations for the Durango Ragtime and Early Jazz Festival. It's a non-profit, so it's tax deductible. If you want to do that, just be sure you specify whether it's a tip for me or a donation for the Ragtime Festival. Again, the festival that I am producing is April 3rd through the 6th. Check out the new website if you haven't done so already. I'm proud of it. I'm not a tech person. I'd rather play piano rolls that you have to pump, but I did my best. It's DurangoRagtime.com. And you know, coming up before the Ragtime Festival in April is a couple of concerts I'm doing in the Midwest. I'm going to be playing for the Kansas City Ragtime and Beyond. I thought it's about time I mentioned that. I think the first concert is February 2nd at the Kauai Piano Store in Kansas City. And after that, I'm going to be working as artist in residence for the Scott Joplin Foundation, playing at a bunch of schools and nursing homes in Sedalia, Missouri, where Scott Joplin lived, at least briefly. And then I'm going back to Kansas City after I play at all the schools and stuff in Sedalia and doing a concert at the Pine Ridge Presbyterian Church, which is February 8th, I think, which might be the day before the Super Bowl. Those two concerts are spread out this time by almost a week. And I played at both of those venues a little over a year ago, and it was very enjoyable. If you're anywhere in the Midwest, there's details on my website. Look at the schedule and come see me in Kansas City. Please do. Yeah, that is a really amazing piano roll, isn't it, Dave? Yeah, and a great response by the player mechanism on the runs. Yes, that's true. Well, part of the concert tonight, new year, new songs, is pieces that I don't play too often. I also decided I wanted to show you some of my rare sheet music. Here's another one. My stepfather gave me a few of these as gifts for Christmas. This piece, I've been waiting to find an original copy of this for years, and Scott bought this out of the collection of the late Mike Montgomery, long time ago. But it is now at my house, and I'm just really stunned to have an original copy of this because you just don't see it anywhere. The classic of all stride piano pieces, which was originally written or recorded rather on piano roll way back in 1917 or 18. The sheet music was not published until 1926. That's the date on this piece. Here is James P. Johnson's Carolina Shout. And I would not have this if it was not for my dad, Scott. This is what the original cover artwork looked like. And the cover even mentions the Cure as piano roll and the OK 78 record. Of course, I don't really play it the way it's written in this sheet music because it had to be greatly simplified for the public. I learned it off the Cure as piano roll. Here's Carolina Shout by James P. Johnson. much. Carolina Shout by the one and only James P. Johnson. It's taken me years to really make that piece sound good. It's difficult to play, and it's one of those tunes where even when the composer played it, every time he played it, it sounded different. And so, again, most of that I learned off the QRS piano roll, but then I tried to add in a few licks from his other recordings. This is the original sheet music, which you do not see very often. It's quite a rarity. Well, I would love to play some more requests. Please send in lots of them. I really don't have too many more pieces planned to play for you tonight. I can only do so many that are new songs that I've never played before. Only so many hours in the day, but let me know what you'd like to hear. I see a request from Jim Moritz for Flypaper Rag. I'll go ahead and play that for you. I was thinking about that earlier. I wonder if Bob Milne's still listening. He usually comments on Facebook. Oh, he just left. He just left about 5 minutes ago. Well, doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and play this piece. This is a somewhat more contemporary rag written by my friend Bob Milne back when he played at the Dakota Inn Rathskeller in Detroit, Michigan in the early 70s, I believe, and it's called the Flypaper Rag. So I'm trying to get a request in here for my friend Jim and his wife, and so who knows? Oh, good. Bob's still here. Stay 5 minutes, Bob. I'm going to play Flypaper Rag. How does that sound? I haven't done it in a while. Thank you very much. The Flypaper Rag by Bob Milne. I loved that when I heard it on Bob's first record. But I think I've only played one more of his pieces over the years. And if you go back and search through my virtual concerts, you can find it. It's a brilliant rag called Snow Owl, in which he slowly changes keys and goes from F to F sharp. Oh, thanks, Bob. Appreciate the kind words. Bob is truly one of the legendary ragtime piano players. In fact, the very first one I ever saw perform a public concert, and probably one of the people most responsible for inspiring me to do what I do today. Sure, looking forward to seeing you in Frankenmuth before too long, Bob. We got to make some plans, so looking forward to that. And anyway, let me switch back over here to YouTube. I see a request for some World War I music from Dave. I might do that. Remind me if I forget. Yeah, I could do a Tom Breyer rag towards the end of the concert. I might close the concert with that, guys. I think that would be a good idea. I have one more piece of sheet music here on the piano I want to play next, however. And I did do this a couple months ago, but this is probably about the second time I've ever performed this song. It's kind of a new one in my repertoire, and it was written about Mae West. But the funny thing is, it was not written for one of her movies. It was written for another Paramount picture called Take a Chance, 1933. Let me double check, yeah. And here's the original cover artwork, which has Lillian Roth on the cover. Wonder if she's a relative of yours, Leo. Who knows? She was one of the big stars of the period. And the song is called Come Up and See Me Sometime. Was really thrilled to finally get an original copy of this. So, of course, it was written about Mae West, but the music was composed by Louis Alter, words by Arthur Swanson. Louis Alter wrote many standard tunes, probably the most famous of which is Do You Know What It Means to Miss New Orleans? But anyhow, it might be kind of fun to read the words to this, too. I believe that everyone in life should have a mission. Making people happy is the height of my ambition. When I get them happy, well, they stay in that condition. I have a system all my own. I got a lot of what I got, and what I've got's all mine. And I assure you, I can cure you if you're feeling blue. Come up and see me sometime. I got a flat where you can hang your hat. I got a brand new line, and maybe you would like me to explain it all to you. Come up and see me sometime. Come up tonight. I think the paper said the moon will be bright. They should have had it in the columns and all, letters that tall, that you'd be falling for me, because I am free and you appeal to me. How could it be a crime? If you don't get my number, well, my number's in the book. Come up and see me sometime. You won't regret it. Come up and see me sometime. up and see me sometime. Thank you very much. That song was recorded by Ramona and her grand piano, whose real name was Ramona Davies. I absolutely love her records. I can't get enough of them. I listen to them often. She was with Paul Whiteman's orchestra in the 1930s. If you've never heard her, she was even in a movie or two. She's worth checking out. Well, I need some more requests. Go ahead and send them in, folks. I've seen at least 2 requests for Tom Breyer. I think that would be a good way to close the concert. So I need some other material here until it's time to finish for the night. So give me some requests. Oh yeah, Jim, I'm sure looking forward to seeing you in Frankenmuth. Patrick, glad you're still listening tonight. I sure missed you at the West Coast this year. Let me double check. Twitch, no requests over there. I see a couple here on YouTube I could do. Excelsior Rag, I don't know. Marzipan, I can't do that without the sheet music. Let's do the Smiler. I see that request from Alan, who I think lives in England. This is a rag written by Percy Winrick, who was called the Joplin Kid because he was from Joplin, Missouri. It didn't have anything to do with Scott Joplin. I'm going to show you something really neat. Just hold on 2 seconds. You're all going to be wondering, what the heck is this? And why did I go over to my staircase and grab this? This is an original piece of the railing of the stairs from the House of Lords Saloon in Joplin, Missouri, where the ragtime composer Percy Winrick actually played in the early 1900s. My friend Smiley in Kansas City gave me this, and he either got it from Bob Darch or Traber Tishner, and Smiley made it into a candlestick holder. But this is really special because it's out of the House of Lords Saloon, probably one of the biggest bordellos of that time period in Joplin, Missouri. And I believe I have an interview with Percy Winrick where he says that Scott Joplin himself played in that saloon. Who knows? Maybe he put his hand on this railing. I don't know. I need to find the article to confirm whether Joplin played there again or not. But let's set that down here by the piano. Hopefully it won't fall over. And since we had a request for the music of Percy Winrick, I think it's very fitting. Here's one of his best rags, the Smiler. Here, you can't see it. much. The Smiler, a rag by Percy Wenrick. I see a request here. This is from Frank for a tune. I'll go ahead and play it for you. This is called Here Comes My Ball and Chain. We're going back to the early jazz years now, 1928, a tune that was written by J. Fred Coots, the legendary songwriter who composed Love Letters in the Sand and Santa Claus is Coming to Town, of course. This is from 1928, recorded by several of the greatest dance bands of the period, the Coon Sanders Nighthawks from Kansas City, whose music I love. Maybe I'll play this when I'm in Kansas City in February. Here Comes My Ball and Chain. Here Comes My Ball and Chain. Thank you very much. I see some requests for the Cascades by Joplin. Afraid I don't know that one by heart. I'd have to see the sheet music to do it. I'd probably practice it once or twice. That's a jolly melody. It's like he's secretly happy to see his wife. That's really funny. Well, that tune fits in just because I haven't played it too often. Come up with 2 or 3 more for me, folks. Didn't He Ramble? I don't have a good arrangement of that. I can kind of play it by ear, but I don't have a good arrangement of that. Jim, I played Lingering Blues last week. Sorry about that. Let me check Facebook real quick. Hey, yeah, Amy says over 200 viewers this evening. 2nd week in a row. Thanks a million. Let me see. I see a request for Fats Waller. Let's do a couple of his songs that I don't play too often. That works for tonight. These are both ballads of the late 20s, 1929, I think. The other one's 1930. I put these two together. They were both recorded by Gene Austin, who I think had one of the most beautiful voices of the period. And the funny thing is, he did a number of Fats Waller songs. Fats was not only a hot stride piano player, but a wonderful melodist. And so the first one is called My Fate Is in Your Hands. And then the next one is a tune called Rollin' Down the River. These were likely written for one of the shows that Fats Waller did in Harlem at Connie's Inn, which was a black nightclub. I know Rolling Down the River was. Anyhow, 2 tunes by Fats Waller. Thank you very much. 2 songs by Fats Waller, My Fate is in Your Hands and Rolling Down the River. Well, I need about 1 more tune here, and then I'm going to finish the concert with a Tom Breyer piece. So go ahead and send them in. You know, sometimes it takes just a minute for there to be requests come in on the chat. There's a little bit of a delay. I see a few here. 1 or 2 I could do. Let's do this. I see a request from my friend Dylan in England. He wants to hear Muskrat Ramble, and this is a piece that I don't play too often, so it kind of fits in for tonight's concert. Again, this is one I sort of learned by ear. I can only do that with pieces that have sort of simple harmonies. This was written by Kid Ory, the famed trombone player from New Orleans, about 1925, although as far as I know, the music was not published until years later. Here we go with Muskrat Ramble. Thank you so much. Muskrat Ramble by Kid Ory. I hope you've all enjoyed this concert and heard some new tunes that you've never heard before. That's part of what I love to do with my life and career. And I'm not sure what I'll do for next week's virtual concert. Haven't thought quite that far ahead, although I do have some ideas. One of which is to continue with the geographic themes. I've done, ragtime from St. Louis, jazz from New Orleans. I've even done San Francisco. I haven't done Chicago yet. I think I should do a concert that's about both Chicago ragtime and jazz. We'll see how much time I have to practice the tunes. And I don't know, it might be something else next week. We'll see, but that's one of the ideas I have. It's a very famous musical city, so I might try that at some point in the near future. But for now, let me do one of the Tom Breyer pieces that I don't play quite as often for tonight's concert. And I'm going to finish with this piece, which is really a brilliant to rag, called Balderdash by Tom Breyer. thank you very much. Balderdash, a contemporary rag by Tom Breyer. Well, again, I hope you've enjoyed this concert for 2025. We should say 2025 now, the new year, and some new songs. Please join me next Sunday night for another virtual concert. It's great to have so many people the last few weeks. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you very much for the virtual tips. And don't forget to get your tickets for the Durango Ragtime and Early Jazz Festival. See you next week. Good night for now, everybody.